Hello, YouTube. An Azerbaijani researcher has studied a skull that was found in Transcaucasia in the middle of the last century during excavations of a Scythian burial. He determined that the remains belonged to an adult woman of 20 to 30 years old who had been hit on the head with a hard, blunt object before her death. According to the scientists, skeletons of early Iron Age people who would have died due to a severe fracture of the cranial vault have not yet been found in the territory of Azerbaijan. The article was published in the journal Volga Archaeology. In the 7th century before Common Era, a new formidable force appeared on the European historical scene, the Scythians, who quickly seized the steppe and forest steppe territories between the Danube and the Don rivers. For several centuries, these nomadic tribes dominated the northern Black Sea region, where archaeologists have excavated many monuments. Soon after arriving in the northern Black Sea region, the Scythians went on a military campaign to the east. They crossed the Caucasus Mountains and declared themselves in the civilized part of the ancient world. The nomads defeated Urartu, attacked the rich cities of Media, Assyria, Babylonia, and some other states of the Near East. The Scythians were such a formidable force that even the Egyptian king Psammetichus I had to buy them off so that they would not ruin his country. Apparently, some of the Scythians settled in Transcaucasia after this campaign, where they probably eventually dissolved among the local population. So in the middle of the last century, archaeologists explored the Mingechaur monument in Azerbaijan, in which they excavated burial mounds and ground burials of the 7th to 4th centuries before Common Era, associated with the Scythians, as indicated by the peculiarities of the rite. Dmitry Kirichenko, from the Institute of Archaeology and Anthropology of the National Academy of Sciences of Azerbaijan, devoted his work to the study of the remains found in one of these graves. According to the scientists, in 1946, in one of the graves of this monument, archaeologists discovered a human skull, bones of some animal, as well as ceramic vessels, bronze earrings, a ring, and part of an owl. Examination of the skull showed that it belonged to an adult woman with Caucasian appearance who died at the age of about 20 to 30 years. Kirichenko found traces of severe trauma on the frontal bone of this woman. So shortly before her death, the woman received a depressed compression fracture, which, judging by the missing healing marks, could have been the cause of her death. Apparently, someone hit her hard with a hard and blunt object, and probably the blow was struck from the right and from above. For this reason, the researcher suggested that the killer could have been on horseback. Kirichenko noted that the remains of the women who suffered traumatic brain injuries, and especially fatal ones, are rarely found on the monuments of the Scythian Siberian world. The investigated case is the first known fatal fracture of the skull bones found on the monuments of the early Iron Age, which are located on the territory of modern Azerbaijan. Also, scientists confirmed the information of the ancient Greek historian I often mention, Herodotus, that the Scythians skinned dead enemies and made things out of the skins. So after analyzing 45 fragments of leather products from Scythian burials, the researchers found 2 samples that represent human skin. The archaeologist was also asked questions by the media, and he responded. So there we go. What is the uniqueness of the skull you examined? Response: it comes from burial number 137 of the archaeological excavations from the year 1946. At that time, the head of the expedition in the Mingachevir zone from 46 to 1953 was the archaeologist Salih Kaziev. We also managed to establish the burial inventory of the burial thanks to the records from the excavation inventory book. Information from the inventory book of archaeological excavations collected in 1946 was provided to us by PhD in history associate professor of the Institute of Archaeology and Anthropology, Faris Khalili. Did you say that the skull you examined belonged to a woman? Response: that's right. The skull from the burial actually belonged to a woman of about 20 to 30 years old, presumably a representative of the southern branch of the Caucasoid race, the so-called Mediterranean, with an admixture of somewhat massive and higher facial anthropological type noted among the Scythians of the Black Sea steppes. The Black Sea Scythians, as anthropologists show, were extremely heterogeneous and represented by various morphological variants. There is a traumatic injury on the woman's skull, a depressed compression fracture with a diameter of 0.9 centimeters on the left frontal bone, from which cracks radiate. There are no signs of healing and inflammation. Most likely, this is an injury sustained during or close to the time of death, the so-called perimortem trauma, according to terminology. The murder weapon was a hard blunt object that broke and pressed the bone, after which a rounded dent formed and cracks appeared from it, which indicates the significant force of the blow that led to the death of the woman. Skull injuries are one of the important sources in reconstructing the lifestyle of the ancient population, and the study of traumatic injuries is one of the important directions in paleopathology. Injuries also act as an indicator of an individual's interaction with the environment and society, and the rate of the spread of cranial injuries is a kind of a marker of aggressiveness and the unfavorable social atmosphere in the population. Probably in that turbulent era, the level of combat injuries was high. Response: absolutely. From history, we can recall the famous Scythian campaigns in Western Asia, as well as their clashes with the local Caucasian tribes. We have interesting cases in Azerbaijan confirming the clashes between the local population and the Scythians. One of them is the discovery of Scythian arrowheads in human bones. In particular, at one time, archaeologist Narimanov noted that people buried in the collective tomb of the Buzeir necropolis in the Lerik district died in battle with the Scythians. There was a bronze 3-bladed Scythian tip in the skull of one of the people. Also, a similar case, the pointed part of the arrowhead of the Scythian type was bent, and the artifact was identified among human bones in the late 1940s, was recorded in burial number 4, according to the type of stone box on the territory of the Absheron Peninsula. Archaeologist Jafarzadeh dated this burial site to the 7th century BC, which coincides with the Scythian campaigns to the south, to Near Asia. I like to cover archaeological discoveries that are not always noted by the media, but are very interesting, and especially in the area of Eurasia. And I did tell you before in my other videos about the Amazons of Eurasia, and I always try to find more proof of how they lived, where they existed, of the battles they fought. But just imagine, because we'll never find out who that woman was and why she was killed or murdered, but imagine the environment, the battles that took place at that time, how strong people were, and the female forces, Amazons and the like, who fought alongside with men, protected their tribes, expanded the area of their settlement, and so forth. Fascinating. This is what I wanted to let you know today. And I'll bring you more archaeological stories as the time goes by. If you like my research, if you can support my research, please do so through the links you'll find in the description to this video. And please tell others about my work. Thank you.